Stephanie, and welcome to Wine Club. This is the playlist where I drink good wine while I whine about bad books. And today I'm going to be reviewing The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I will be spoiling this book, so do not watch this review if you want to be surprised by the story. And I also want to say that my review is solely about the book and not about the author as a person. So this was actually my second read by Adams, as I read No Exit a few months ago, and I loved that until the ending. Like, I really love his writing, his characters, but then those endings are just so foobarred. But let's see what The Last Word promised it was supposed to be about. Emma Carpenter is living in isolation with her golden retriever, Laika, house-sitting an old beachfront home on the rainy Washington coast. Her only human contact is with her enigmatic elderly neighbor, Deke, and, via text, with the house's owner, Jules. One day, she reads a poorly written, but gruesome, horror novel by the author H.G. Cain, and posts a 1-star review that drags her into an online argument with none other than the author himself. Soon after, disturbing incidents start to occur at night. To Emma, this can't just be a coincidence. It was strange enough for this author to bicker with her online about a lousy review. Could he be stalking her too? As Emma digs into Cain's life and work, she learns he has published 16 other novels, all similarly sadistic tales of stalking and murder. But who is he? How did he find her? And what else is he capable of? Displaying his trademark command of rapid-fire pacing, unnerving atmosphere, and razor-sharp characterization, Taylor Adams once again delivers a diabolically disturbing and deadly game of cat and mouse. The idea? Right up my alley. Such a great premise. I should be scared to give this a bad review, based on the premise alone, but I'm not. I'm sorry. My problem with this is just like my problem with No Exit. It's so good. It's so good. Until it's time to end that book. And then it just doesn't end. This is a great idea. This should have been a great book. It's a great story. Interesting characters. Adams is a good writer. I was hooked with the suspense, the atmosphere, the twists. But Christ on a Cracker, Adams, land the plane. Bring your story to a close. Just like No Exit, the book's ending became so over the top that I wondered if it was satire. It was the Oprah meme. You get a twist and you get a twist. Everybody gets twists. No, I want the book to come to a realistic conclusion. Stop. Please stop stretching the ending beyond what it should be. Stop letting the story spiral into the ridiculous. These people can survive everything. People are shot, stabbed, maimed, drowned, and yet they just keep popping up and going like the Energizer Bunny. Also, like No Exit, the villain's manner of speaking felt really cartoonish and out of place. I also didn't love the notion that the villain was the way he is because of mental illness. He could have just been creepy. He could have just been a bad guy and actively chooses to be this way instead of at the mercy of his own illness. The way the character talks is very much for our benefit, and it didn't really feel like it was to be true to the character or the story. Again, like No Exit, the villain is a caricature of an incel. He is, but he isn't. He is in some instances, but then he's not, and he's just frustrated that he's so repellent and gross to women, but then he also hates them and wants to see them suffer, but then he's just mad. Like, he's scary, but he's also afraid, which makes sense, but I just couldn't buy Howard as a real character. Like, here's some excerpts of how he talks in this book. So, on page 80. You're a shy girl, aren't you? After a stomach-clenching silence, the voice softens. As a Sigma male, I've always been drawn to loners, and I liked that about you. Your solitude, your independence, but you're grieving too. I can tell. No offense, but you love that golden retriever too much. It's unhealthy. And now I'll ask you one last time. Do you stand by your review? And then he reads off her review to her. And then on page 219, The human Chucky doll's lips curl into a smile. The sound of it, a flesh wetly tightening, makes her stomach churn. I've always been a loner too. The smile is wistful, vulnerable. I know I'm not an alpha male. You won't find me in a sports bar leading a pack of betas and chasing females. I'm something else. A new archetype they recently discovered. A sigma male. Just as powerful and charismatic as an alpha, but solitary. Just like you, Emma, I don't have a pack. A sigma male is a true lone wolf. Really? Really? This is the incel character that we're supposed to be scared of? Yeah, I hate to harp on this and compare it to No Exit, but it's very much like No Exit, and I'll get to that later in my review. But like No Exit, I loved this until the 90% mark. And then it was just a slog to get through. When the ending should not feel that way. You also have to have a pretty open mind and willing to suspend all disbelief for these endings. Like, again, these villains, even some of the characters in this, are just supernatural with what they're able to withstand. I also felt the story was a bit predictable. Like, I know I've ranted before about stories that leave no freaking clues and try to pass off the killer without any setup. This almost had too much setup. Like, certain details were basically lit up with neon signs saying, "Remember this!" And the twists were easy to see from a mile away. Like, obviously Deke knows the author, and it took Emma way too long to connect the dots that he knows more than he's letting on. Jules tells Emma that her son stays at the house, and the killer is able to outmaneuver her. Wow, almost like maybe he knows the property pretty well. I also guessed early on that her husband was still alive, though the plot point about her baby was a surprise because there wasn't that much setup or allusion toward her being a mom. But the heavy-handedness of her missing Sean but never committing and saying that he was like really gone gave it away. But then it does make me question, like, how is she not thinking about her daughter more, especially since it sounds like it was so difficult for her and Sean to have her in the first place. You think that would be weighing on her a lot more, and we'd get a lot more, like, allusion to her missing somebody without it being so heavy-handed that it's Sean? Because then when we do find out about her daughter, to me, it didn't carry the weight, because I'm like, well, you did this just because it was a twist and to shock me. I couldn't have foreseen that coming, because that wasn't really how this was set up. Moving on from the twists, I have read reviews where people didn't really like the mixed media-ish format. Like, we'll get the story on what's really happening, and then there will be the insert of the Murder Beach story version that's being written about what's happening to Emma. So it's like a book within a book. I actually didn't mind this part. I thought it was an interesting add-on to the story as we got to see Emma's perspective of what was really happening, and then the glorified and altered retelling from the villain. I actually thought it was a neat touch and does play well into showing the villain's warped sense of reality and how he's portraying not only himself but everything that's happening. I actually enjoy that. I know a lot of people didn't, but I thought it worked well, and then it actually does work well with one of the twists we get later on about, like, Deke actually being the one writing some of this stuff. Again, first 90% of this book is entertaining, it's suspenseful, and it's a page turner. I stayed up hella late to fly through these chapters. Adams does a great job of keeping me hooked and does craft very unique and very original horror stories. He knows his genre and he writes it quite well. You feel like you're trapped in the house with Emma. You feel like someone is standing right behind you. I also think he knows his characters. His characters are all facing their own inner demons as well as real life ones. You can't help but root for them. Adams is good at putting his characters into life or death situations, and for the most part, I'm not screaming at the heroines for their dumb decisions. For the most part. Emma was actually really resilient and used her head to outsmart the killer. Except for one certain scene. When the police arrive, Emma has a chance and literally just closes the door on it. Like, girl, what are you doing? You know Howard has no intention of letting you or Deke live, So tell the cops what's going on. Also, I have to ask, how is all of this stuff in the story happening and her dog doesn't seem to be stressed out in the slightest? The door opens a little too fast, or a paper bag crinkles, and my dog loses his mind. Though I was so happy to see that the dog does not die, or this book would have been tossed in the trash. Though, like our villains, the dog has some serious plot armor in that it doesn't die from eating the poisoned and baited food that Howard left for it. Like, sorry, that rat poison probably would have killed the dog. Like, I get she got him to throw it up, but, like, it's also in his system. Like, I don't want the dog to die, but it's also... Adams tends to play with the rules of reality and what people are able to withstand a little bit too much for my liking. Again, the ending. Love 90% of the book. The endings are just the worst. The fake out ending with Deke drugging and trying to kill Emma and make it look like she took her own life was really over the top. And it only served to add more twists and turns to this book that was already flying off the road because it was too twisty. All in, I think I rated this 2.5, 3 stars if I was being generous. I would have given it a 4, maybe even a 5. I loved it until the ending that just wouldn't end. Like, I'm really hoping that this is not Adam's signature style, as it really would deter me from his other work. And I think he's a great writer. Again, I was ignoring all of my responsibilities because I had to finish this. And then, like No Exit, it just slows way down and it becomes ridiculous and it becomes a farce. And it's not the same story anymore. And I know plenty of authors that follow templates. I like Dan Brown. Say what you will about him. I also like Megan Miranda, whom I love. But their stories don't have 99 fake-out endings. Are they templatized? For sure. But they still come to a conclusion. They still end. This is what I take issue with the 2 books by Adams that I have read. Like I said, land the plane, dude. You don't want readers closing your book and being glad that it's just finally over. Most of us don't want but wait, there's more, 19 times in a row. I just want the book to be done. I want to feel satisfied that I read this. And had I quit at maybe 80-85% mark, probably would have felt great about this. Wouldn't have known what happened, but I would have felt great. The writing is strong. I did read a Goodreads review that compared this to No Exit, which I've been doing that this entire time, but they looked at it more in terms of setup. You have a scrappy but depressed heroine who faces a villain that thinks they're super smart and hates women on some level, and are apparently beating Jesus at his own game with how often they can resurrect. Same thing, different setting. If you liked No Exit, you might really like this. Though I've seen other reviews from people that liked No Exit and hated this, so who knows? I felt very similarly about both books. Great, for the most part. But I just want to be put out of my misery with these endings. You may also like this if you really like campy slasher movies. It's a bit like Scream, but it's not as good or self-aware in that way that makes Scream such a great cinematic masterpiece, because it's poking fun at those tropes while still like just showing them in a different setting. I really do want to give Adam's work another try in the future, because for the most part, I do like his writing. Again, great. I don't mind that they're templates. But rein it in a little bit and make the ending more believable, and learn how to write one satisfying ending instead of thinking that the more twists we add, the better it is. It's like somewhere thriller authors heard that we as readers love multiple twists, and at the end of a book, when no, I want a good ending. That's what I want. I just want a good ending that ties up everything. I don't need, you get a twist and a twist over here, and oh, this person's no longer dead, and oh, this person came back to life to pop out of the woodwork and shoot the heroine. Adding twists for the sake of adding twists only adds annoyance to my reading experience. Okay, so please let me know if any of his other works are well written the whole way through, as in the book has a good ending, so I can give him another try. Because again, I think he's a very talented writer. I would love to support him and continue to buy his books. But again, when I'm finished this and No Exit, I was mad. I did not have a good time. And I was mad that it was so good until the end. So if he has other work that you think is just fantastic that I need to check out, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me for Wine Club, and I'll see you next time.